Have you ever wondered how one tiny car changed the history of the world forever? Most people see a small, rounded car and think it looks cute or funny. They call it a Beetle. But this car was not born in a happy time. Its story starts with a giant challenge that seemed impossible to solve. Back in the early 1930s, Germany was a very different place. The roads were mostly empty. Only the very rich could afford a car. If you were a normal worker, you walked. You rode a bike. Or you stood in the rain waiting for a bus. Cars were luxury toys for the elite. One man wanted to change that. He had a dream to put every family on wheels. This is the story of a machine that survived wars, traveled across every ocean, and became a legend. In this video, we are diving deep into the secrets of German engineering. We will see how a simple sketch turned into the most famous shape on Earth. You will learn about the genius who designed it and the dark shadows that almost destroyed it. We will explore how this people's car went from a military tool to a symbol of peace and love. Stick around until the very end of the video. If you watch the whole story, I have a special reward for you. I will reveal a secret about the rarest version of this car ever made. Most collectors don't even know it exists. You do not want to miss that. Now, let's go back in time. Imagine the year is 1933. The world is changing fast. Germany is cold, and the economy is struggling. In the city of Berlin, a famous engineer sits down for a meeting. His name is Ferdinand Porsche. He is a man who loves speed and power. But today, he is not talking about race cars. He is talking about a car for the average person. The goal is simple but very difficult. The car must carry 2 adults and 3 children. It must be able to drive fast on the new highways called the Autobahn. Most importantly, it must be cheap. It needs to cost less than 1,000 marks. That was about the price of a small motorcycle back then. Engineers at the time laughed at this idea. They said it was impossible to build a high-quality car for that price. They said a small engine would overheat. They said the car would be too weak for the highway. But Ferdinand Porsche did not listen to the doubters. He started working in his private garage. He tested different shapes. He tried different engines. He wanted something different. He wanted something that would last forever. This was the birth of the vision. It was a vision for a car that belonged to everyone. It was the beginning of the people's car. This vision would soon lead to the creation of a brand the world now knows as Volkswagen. This was the spark that started a mechanical revolution. The vision was bold, but the engineering had to be even bolder. Ferdinand Porsche knew he could not build a normal car. A normal car had a heavy radiator filled with water to cool the engine. But Germany has very cold winters. Water freezes and breaks engines. Porsche decided to use air instead. He designed a special fan to blow air over the engine parts. This meant the car would never freeze in the winter. It would also never boil over in the summer heat. This was a massive win for reliability. He then placed the engine in the back of the car. Most cars have the engine in the front. By putting it in the back, the weight of the engine pushed the tires down into the road. This gave the car amazing grip on mud, snow, and sand. The shape of the car was also a stroke of genius. Porsche did not want a boxy car. He wanted a car that could cut through the wind like a knife. He chose a rounded, curved design. This Beetle shape was not just for looks. It helped the car go faster while using less fuel. Under the metal skin, the car was incredibly simple. It had a flat floor and a tough suspension system. It was built to take a beating on rough country roads. Porsche and his team built several prototypes in secret. They drove these early cars for thousands of miles. They drove them up steep mountains and through deep mud. They wanted to make sure that when the people finally got their car, it would never let them down. But building a car is one thing. Building millions of cars is another. Germany needed a place to manufacture this dream. In 1938, the government began building a massive factory in a place called Wolfsburg. It was the largest car factory the world had ever seen. It was so big that it was like its own city. To pay for the factory and the cars, a special savings program started. Thousands of ordinary workers began putting away 5 marks every week. They were told that once they saved enough, a brand new, people's car, would be waiting for them. People were excited. They stuck stamps into little booklets and dreamed of the day they would finally drive. The factory was a hive of activity. Machines were moving, and the first few cars began to roll off the line. The world was watching this German miracle. However, a dark cloud was moving over Europe. Just as the people were getting ready to receive their cars, the drums of war started to beat. The great factory at Wolfsburg was about to change. The dream of a family car for everyone was put on hold. Instead of families going on picnics, the factory began preparing for a much more dangerous task. The people's car was about to face its greatest test in the middle of a global conflict. The year was 1939, and the world was at war. The massive factory at Wolfsburg stopped making cars for families. Instead, it started making vehicles for the military. The people's car was changed into a rugged machine called the Kübelwagen. It used the same air-cooled engine and the same tough chassis. Because it did not need water for cooling, it was perfect for the hot deserts of Africa and the freezing snow of Russia. The little car that was meant for joy was now a tool for battle. During this time, Allied planes dropped thousands of bombs on the factory. By the end of the war, the great halls of Wolfsburg were mostly ruins. There were no workers, no money, and no hope. The factory sat silent in the debris. Most people thought it was the end of the story. The Allied forces took control of the area. A young British officer named Major Ivan Hurst was sent to manage the ruins. His job was to see if anything could be saved. Inside the broken factory, he found a few dusty, painted cars. He was an engineer, and he saw something special in the design. He realized that the world desperately needed cheap transportation to rebuild. He cleaned up the machines and convinced the British Army to order 20,000 cars. This was a miracle. The factory started breathing again. The workers returned, and the people's car was born for the second time. In the late 1940s, the car got a new name, the Volkswagen Beetle. At first, it was hard to sell. People remembered where it came from. The car was small, loud, and looked like a bug. In America, people liked huge cars with chrome and big fins. They laughed at the little German car. But then, something strange happened. People started to realize that the Beetle was better than the big cars. It didn't break down. It was easy to park. It saved a lot of money on gas. It was honest. It didn't try to look rich, it just tried to work hard. By the 1950s, the Beetle began to spread across the globe. It was being sold in over 80 countries. It became the first truly global car. In the United States, a famous advertising agency created a campaign called Think Small. Instead of bragging about power, they talked about how the car was small and reliable. It was a huge hit. The Beetle was no longer just a German car. It was becoming a member of the family. Students drove it to college. Doctors drove it to hospitals. It was the car that helped the world get back on its feet after the darkest years in history. As the 1960s arrived, the Beetle became more than just a machine. It became a cultural icon. All over the world, the car started appearing in movies and songs. It was the star of the show. In the United States, young people began to paint their Beetles with bright colors and flowers. They saw the car as a symbol of peace. While other car companies made their vehicles look more aggressive and expensive every year, the Beetle stayed the same. It was friendly. It was simple. It was the car for the flower power generation. Because the design was so perfect from the start, the company didn't need to change it. This made it very easy for owners to find parts and fix their own cars at home. By 1972, the Beetle reached a milestone that shocked the entire car industry. It officially became the most produced car in the history of the world. It took the crown away from the famous Ford Model T. Over 15 million Beetles had been built. But the story didn't stop there. While production eventually slowed down in Europe, the car found a new home in Latin America. In countries like Mexico and Brazil, the Vocho was the king of the road. It was used as taxis, police cars, and family wagons. It could handle the heat and the bumpy mountain roads better than any modern car. Even though the world was moving toward computers and complex technology, the Beetle stayed true to its roots. It kept the same air-cooled engine and the same rounded shape for decades. Finally, in the year 2003, the very last original Beetle rolled off the assembly line in Mexico. Workers cried and sang songs as the car was decorated with flowers. It was the end of an era. Over 21 million units had been sold since the dark days of the 1930s. The dream of Ferdinand Porsche had come true in a way he never could have imagined. His people's car had truly conquered every corner of the planet. Today, German engineering is known as the best in the world. Brands like Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz lead the market. But they all owe their success to this little bug. It proved that good design is timeless. It showed that a car doesn't need to be fancy to be loved. Now, as I promised at the beginning of the video, here is your reward. Many people think the Beetle was just one type of car. But did you know there is a postal version called the Fridolin? It was a special, boxy Beetle made only for mail carriers in Germany and Switzerland. It is one of the rarest vehicles ever made, with only a few hundred left in the world. Thank you for watching the full journey of the car that put the world on wheels. If you enjoyed this documentary, hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the history of engineering. See you in the next one.